What's up, everybody? Zamboni Nick here. Now, I got these New York guys right here, gangsters like no other. They were just too gangster for the real world. But it's funny how the feds can only get them on small things like prostitution and tax invasion. I don't know what was going on with them back in the day, but they weren't doing the right job, that's for sure. And these guys, they were doing everything you could think of. And that's who I got, the 5 Points Gang from New York. But get this, they were Irish and Italian at first, founded by a guy named Paul Kelly from the slums of Lower Manhattan, New York. Organized crime syndicate was involved heavily with prostitution and gambling and other rackets. And that's obvious. They branched out into other criminal activities, including murder. Al Capone and Lucky Luciano started their criminal careers in the 5 Points Gang. A gang at first would later evolve into a mafia during the onset of Prohibition, which makes completely sense. Brutal street fights when they were the 5 Point Gangs with other gangs spread throughout New York. So they were fighting everybody. They had allies of their own and they had rivals. And their rivals, listen to these names: Eastman Gang, White Hand Gang, Lennox, and along with several others. But listen to their allies: Gopher Gang, Jewish gangs, and the Hudson Dusters were allies of the 5 Points Gang. That's insane. And these are facts. Talking about the birthplace of the Italian Mafia in the United States, they battled with their enemies. And that's for sure. On the streets back then, you know, as immigrants, Italian immigrants and Irish immigrants. So it was a totally different world. And we're talking about things over, you know, roughly 100 years ago. But with gunfights, knife fights, and brawls. So it wasn't just elite, all glitz and glamour, you know, how you see the mob all dressed up, they get whatever. No, these guys started from the slums. Paul Kelly, Al Capone, and Lucky Luciano, and Meyer Lansky, and Bugsy Siegels. And these are some of the characters that were actually part of the 5 Point Gang. There was Jack McManus, John Spanish, Lucky Luciano, Al Capone, Bugsy Siegels, Meyer Lansky, and other members as well. The 5 Points Gang, along with several more, were definitely like, they were a threat in New York City, and they were up and coming. So, you know, they brought a lot of attention to themselves, obviously, by law enforcement and the feds. And they really weren't established as the feds back then, because I don't believe they can go state to state like they can now with their authorization like they did back then. They just didn't have it. And that's true. But Kelly, the originator of all this, eventually died in 1936 at the age of 59. These gangsters were vicious, ruthless, with a touch of creativity to make money through criminal activity and survival. Majority of these gangsters are legend in movies and museums. And that's true. 5 Points Gang of New York, Al Capone is a legend. Lucky Luciano is a legend. Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, Paul Kelly, these guys are iconic legends in Italian mob. And that's what they would later on evolve to, obviously, was from the 5 Points Gang to the Italian Mafia during the Prohibition era. Al Capone moved to Chicago in 1920, took over the syndicate in Chicago in 1925, and became the godfather of it all. The outfit, Prohibition, everything, you know, and they took him down eventually. But that's the 5 Points Gang. Those are the guys in it. They were ruthless. Sad to say they could only get them on prostitution and tax evasion. All of them would eventually die. Of course, this was like 100 years ago. It's black and white, but that's a picture of them right there. Yep, the 5 Points Gang based out of New York. So if you want to keep in touch with all my future videos and everything that I have up and coming, please hit the subscribe button and have a good day.